The scream sliced through the chilly evening air like a knife, sharp, panicked. The kind of sound that makes a parent's heart stop before their mind even understands what's happening. Jason Miller was locking up the small auto repair garage where he worked late shifts when he heard it. At first, he thought he imagined it. He was exhausted, running on cheap coffee and determination, the same combination that kept his life stitched together since the death of his wife 2 years earlier. But then he heard it again, a desperate cry, followed by the unmistakable scuffle of feet on asphalt. His hands turned cold, his pulse surged, and something deep inside him, the part shaped by grief and fatherhood, roared awake. If you believe in kindness, if you believe in stepping in when someone is in danger, and if you believe in second chances, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel before we continue this story. Your support truly keeps stories like this alive. Jason dropped his keys without realizing it and sprinted toward the dark alley beside the garage. His boots pounded the pavement. His breath came in sharp bursts. He didn't think. He couldn't, not when someone sounded so terrified. When he reached the alley entrance, he saw the silhouette of a girl being dragged by a larger man, her small hands clawing at the ground, her sobs echoing between the brick walls. Jason didn't stop to ask questions or shout warnings. His fists clenched before his mind made the decision. He launched himself forward, pure adrenaline driving him. His first punch connected squarely with the man's jaw, sending him crashing against the dumpster with a thud. The girl scrambled backward, shaking, her eyes wide with shock. Jason positioned himself in front of her without even looking back, ready for another attack. But the man groaned, staggered to his feet, glared drunkenly at Jason, and then stumbled away into the night. Jason finally turned and knelt down, breathing hard. The dim street lamp flickered above them, casting trembling shadows over the girl's tear-streaked face. She couldn't have been more than 14. Her clothes were worn, her hair tangled, her hands trembling uncontrollably. She looked like someone who hadn't slept properly in days. Jason softened his voice instinctively, trying to calm her, but her fear was carved deep. She flinched even at gentleness. He knew that look. He had seen it on the face of his own daughter, Daisy, during the early days after her mother's death, when nightmares had consumed her sleep and every sound had felt like danger. Trauma recognizes trauma. Pain recognizes pain. And the moment their eyes met, Jason felt a protective instinct anchor itself firmly inside his chest. He guided her out of the alley, slowly, giving her space as they walked toward the garage office where it was warm and safe. The girl barely spoke, only muttering her name, Lena, when he asked gently. Her voice cracked on the single syllable. She kept glancing at the street, as if expecting the man to return at any moment. Jason made her a cup of hot chocolate from the machine customers used to avoid. It wasn't much, but on that cold night, it was enough to stop her shivering. She sat curled up in the small metal chair, clutching the cup with both hands like it was the only warmth she had left in the world. Jason watched her carefully, not wanting to overwhelm her with questions. He had learned with Daisy that sometimes the silences spoke louder than the words. As he waited, his mind drifted to his daughter, asleep at home under the care of their elderly neighbor. She was 10, bright, hopeful, too young to understand why her mommy hadn't woken up one morning. Jason had promised himself he would never let anything hurt Daisy again. And now, staring at Lena, he felt that same promise extend toward this trembling stranger. When she finally began to talk, her sentences came out in broken pieces, each one weighed down by fear. She had run away from an abusive stepfather. She had tried to stay with a friend for a few days, but the friend's parents had found out and forced her to leave. She had nowhere to go, no money, no plan. And tonight she had been grabbed while walking past a bar. The man had tried to force her toward a car, and she didn't know what would have happened if Jason hadn't been there. Jason felt anger simmer in his chest, but he kept his face calm for her sake. She didn't need fury. She needed safety.
He didn't call the police immediately. He knew the system. He knew how often kids like her got sent back to the very places they escaped from. He asked if she had any family she trusted. She shook her head. He asked if she wanted to go to a shelter. She flinched, whispering that she'd been to one last year and something bad had happened there, too. Jason's heart twisted. The world had been merciless to her. He called Daisy's caregiver, explained briefly, and then gently asked Lena if she'd be comfortable coming to his home for the night, just one night, until they figured out a safe place for her to go. She hesitated, fear battling exhaustion, but eventually she nodded. She was too tired to keep running. It was nearly midnight when they pulled up to Jason's little house. Daisy woke up when he checked on her, rubbing her eyes sleepily. When she saw Lena behind them, she blinked in surprise. But children have a way of seeing truth without asking for explanations. She simply gave Lena a soft blanket from her bed and whispered, "You can borrow this. It's really warm." That small act shattered something in Lena. She broke into quiet tears, hugging the blanket to her chest. Daisy didn't ask why. She just sat beside her on the couch, the way only a child who still believed in kindness could. The days that followed were complicated. Jason contacted social workers, spoke to advocates, made calls during every spare minute between fixing engines and juggling bills. He wanted to find a proper solution, something long-term, something safe. But Lena clung to Daisy like a shadow, and Daisy seemed equally attached. They did homework together, shared jokes, even made pancakes on Saturday mornings. To Jason's surprise, Lena smiled, really smiled, more than once. It was a fragile, hesitant smile, but it was real. Yet the struggle didn't disappear. Jason was only one man, barely keeping his own life afloat. Taking care of Daisy alone already stretched him thin, and now he had another child who needed emotional support, security, food, a place to sleep. He stayed up late every night, staring at unpaid bills, wondering if he was being irresponsible. What if he couldn't provide enough? What if the system accused him of overstepping? What if Lena's stepfather came looking for her? But every time he thought about letting her go, he remembered that terrified scream in the alley. And he remembered his promise. Unspoken, but powerful. Not to walk away from someone who desperately needed help. One afternoon, about 3 weeks after he found her, Jason got a call from the advocacy center. They had located Lena's biological aunt in another state, a woman who had spent years searching for the child her sister's husband had cut out of their lives. She had a stable home, a good job, no criminal history, and she wanted Lena immediately. Jason's heart should have lifted, but instead he felt it crack. Daisy cried when he told her. Lena didn't cry, not in front of him, but her silence said enough. She had finally found a place where she wasn't afraid, where she wasn't hungry or hiding, where she wasn't unwanted, and now she had to leave again. That evening, after Daisy fell asleep, Jason found Lena sitting alone on the porch swing. The porch light cast a warm glow over her as she hugged her knees to her chest. She didn't look scared, just tired, and older than any child should ever look. She said she was grateful, that he had saved her life, that Daisy had given her hope she didn't know she still had, that she didn't want to leave, but she knew she had to.
Jason listened in stillness, swallowing the knot in his throat. He told her she was brave, that she deserved a fresh start, that family, when safe and loving, could be a miracle. He told her that Daisy would always consider her a sister. And he said something he had never said to anyone outside his daughter. You matter. Your life matters.
When it was time for her to go, Lena hugged him. Not the quick, polite kind of hug. It was the desperate, heartfelt embrace of someone who didn't know how to say goodbye to the only safe person she had known in years. Jason held her gently, like a father holds a child who isn't biologically his, but belongs to his heart anyway. The aunt arrived the next morning, a kind-eyed woman with trembling hands and a voice that cracked when she saw her niece. Jason knew instantly that Lena would be loved. Daisy gave Lena the blanket she had loaned her that first night, insisting she keep it forever, because forever means you're not alone. As they drove away, Jason lifted Daisy into his arms. She was crying, and he let her bury her face against his shoulder. His own eyes burned, but he stayed strong. He whispered that they had done something good, something that mattered. They had changed someone's life. And sometimes loving someone means helping them go where they will be safest and happiest. A week passed, then a month. Life returned to its routine, but something felt missing. Jason kept a picture Daisy had drawn, 3 stick figures holding hands, taped above his workbench. Whenever he looked at it, he felt both pain and pride. And then, one Saturday morning, a letter arrived. It was from Lena. She wrote about her new school, her new home, how her aunt tucked her in every night and made her feel wanted. She wrote that she was getting therapy, finally sleeping without nightmares. She said Daisy's blanket was on her bed, giving her courage. And at the end of the letter, in shaky handwriting, she wrote, "I will never forget you." Daisy cried again when they read it together. But this time the tears were soft, warm, not painful. Jason folded the letter carefully and placed it in a small box filled with memories of his late wife. Some things deserved to be kept close to the heart. Life didn't magically become easy. Jason still struggled with bills, with work, with single fatherhood. But something inside him had changed. He no longer felt like life was just a series of battles. He felt purpose again, real, meaningful purpose. Because, for a moment in time, he had been someone's miracle. And that mattered. If this story touched your heart, if you believe in helping others even when it's hard, please like, share, comment, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps us keep telling powerful stories like this. Before we end, please leave a special comment. Kindness saves lives. Thank you for watching. And always remember that even a small act of courage can change someone's world forever.